Welcome to Bhatt and Word Tutorials. I am Sheshadri, faculty for 10th grade state syllabus for social science. Dear students, we are starting the social science syllabus with the lesson in history. Now the first chapter is Advent of Europeans to India. Okay, let us take a look at what you would learn in this unit. The trade and commerce relationship which India had with Europeans. That is one topic which will be discussed. The second one is arrival of Europeans to India for trade. The Carnatic Wars in the backdrop of European political developments. The Battle of Plassey, Battle of Buxar, and dual government system. The British policy of aggression. This chapter we will be doing it in 2 sessions. So this will be the first session, part 1, and we'll later continue in the for the half of the remaining half of the chapter, the next session. Okay, so now there were trade and commerce relationships between India and Europe since the ancient times, and there was great demand for Indian spices like pepper, cardamom, ginger, and many other spices in Europe. Probably because one, their cuisine did not have these ingredients as such in majority like we have in our Indian kind of cuisine, and also because of the weather, because of weather conditions, these spices could not be grown in those parts of Europe. So this relationship of trade and commerce was there not just when these people arrived, but long before the Europeans actually came to India. Now, the trade relationships continued between India, Europe, and the other Asian countries even during the Middle Ages. That's in the, say, in the 12th century, 13th century, all those times also, this trade relationship was there. Now, how it used to happen was, it was the Arabs who would come to India. Please remember, those times it was not the sea route that was being used. We will see in the maps that will follow this slide. They were all land routes, totally routes over land, so they didn't need the use of ships. So it was these Arab merchants who would come to India, buy the merchandise here, and they would take it to Constantinople. Constantinople, or the modern name for Constantinople is Istanbul, which is now the capital of Turkey. Now, Constantinople was the capital there of the Eastern Roman Empire. It was under the Roman Empire, the Eastern Roman Empire, also known as the Byzantium Empire. Now, from Constantinople, the Italians would come and buy these goods and later distribute it in European countries. Now, like this, Constantinople was the center of international business and considered as the gate of European trade. See, even now, even in modern times, the country of Dubai in the United Arab Emirates, that now acts as a gateway. All goods which are to be exported into Europe and into Africa, that goes to Dubai. So this situation is similar. This was similar during those days. It was Constantinople which was the gateway. Now, while Arab merchants had gained monopoly over the trade in Asian countries, Italian traders had gained monopoly over trade in Europe. Now, these are two different segments. One half being handled by the Arabs, the second part of it being handled by the Italians. The merchandise from Asia had brought good profits to Italian merchants. So, this was how it was till, say, the beginning of the half of the 15th century. Now, there are a series of these 3-4 maps which show the trade routes, and you can see in the right hand corner the products that were traded. It had cloth, grain, ivory, metal, precious stones, silk, even slaves. Those days it was like the slave trade was very much there. People could buy slaves, so that also was part of it. And you had spices, silk, slaves, spices, timber, and tortoise shell. Now, silk was mainly from China, because China was the largest producer of silk in those days. The other things, spices, were mainly from India. There was great demand for Indian spices like pepper, cardamom, ginger, and many other spices in Europe. This is one more map there. It shows the red shading is actually the Muslim lands, which was ruled by Muslim rulers during those times. Please note, at that time, Constantinople is not shaded red. That is where the change came in, as we will see later. Now, this route over China, there is one more map in which we will see, known as the Silk Route, which the Chinese, even today, they want to revive that route. All these routes are basically land routes and did not involve any travel in sea, as far as the initial routes were concerned. Now, this is what I was telling you as the yellow one is actually the Chinese Silk Route. Nowadays, it is a bit controversial, though it is out of context here. But it is China which is trying to again renew this route, and part of the route it passes through POK, Pakistan occupied Kashmir. So anyway, that is a political issue. It is not in context with this, but this route is that. This is the old Chinese Silk Route that is seen here. And when the Arabs, because actually, if you stand on the coast of Kerala, there are some points in Kerala where during a very clear day, you can see the southernmost part of Muscat. So that is what they say, though I have not physically seen it. So that was very close. So some little bit of sea route movement also was there between the Arab countries, the Arabian Peninsula and India, as we can see here. And that is why these Arab merchants, they had gained monopoly over the trade in Asian countries. And from the trading point at Constantinople, the Italians used to take over, and their trade flourished in Europe. So this was how the situation that was there for a long time. Now, This is a this is a, there is a landmark as to why the entire history of our country changed. The entire history, not only of our country, the entire Asian continent, which began with the fall of Constantinople. Now, trade and commerce, as we discussed, between Asia and Europe was taking place through the city of Constantinople. In 1453, the Ottoman Turks, they captured the city of Constantinople. Now, it was earlier under the Roman Empire. It was the Eastern Roman Empire. And in 1453, the Ottoman Turks, who were already ruling certain parts of the Middle East already by that time, they captured the city of Constantinople. Now, as a result, all the trade routes connecting the city of Constantinople came under the control of Turks. The Turks started levying too many taxes on the goods passing through these routes. Now they saw that there was a huge amount of trade and commerce happening, which was coming to Constantinople, being the gateway to Europe, gate to Europe. So all the items that came there, these people started levying too many customs duties on them. What we today call as customs duties, one country imposing a duty on the other, mostly is customs duty. Within the country, the duty that is imposed is excise. Nowadays, for info, please note, all these internal duties have now become GST. And still, whatever imports that we get or whatever exports that we do, they are levied with customs duty. So these Turks, they started putting too many taxes, levying too many taxes on these goods passing through the routes. So what happens? The trader will not take on the tax burden. He will obviously pass it on to the consumer. So as a result, the merchants felt that the trade was not profitable because the volume of sale will definitely come down. Because of excessive taxes, the goods started becoming costlier, and whoever were the earlier customers would definitely stop buying them or buy at a much lesser volume. This is one aspect of the picture there. The second aspect is, meanwhile, Spain and Portugal were attempting to break the monopoly of Italian traders, because it is just a matter of competition. So they saw that Italians were making a lot of money in this, so they wanted to break this monopoly by the Italians. Now, because the land route here, the only route then was land route, and no sea routes were there at that time. People had not yet discovered these sea routes. Now, both these countries, they started giving funding to sailors. They started encouraging courageous sailors to find a sea route to India. It would generally be the king who would call up the captain of a ship, a known, well-known explorer and sailor, and he would give him the certain amount of whatever funding is required for his entire journey. That is how it used to happen. Now that started happening in the case of Spain and Portugal. And at that point of time, because of these scientific inventions, the invention of compass, astrolabes. Astrolabes is it is used in measure of stars. And before the invention of the sextant, to find the latitude of a place, this was helpful. Now, these inventions, compass, astrolabes, of course, and gunpowder. How was gunpowder? That is to fight any pirates that they would find at sea. So gunpowder was basically in this context, it is for defense of the people who will be traveling by sea. That provided a further impetus to this venture. So we see here in this picture, this map, the fall of Constantinople, which led to the discovery of new sea routes. The shading that you see is for the Ottoman Empire actually. The lighter shading was there, that was at 1683. And when you see in 1914, that is just before the beginning of the First World War, you can see that there is a darker portion there. The Ottoman Empire had expanded a lot. So this shows it shows that. Now it was the Portuguese and the Spanish people who were encouraging. So it was Vasco da Gama. Now this Portuguese sailor, he left Lisbon, reached Kapadu near Calicut on the west coast of India in 1498. Dear students, please note, in the textbook also, it is given as on Calicut on the east coast of India. So there is a small correction there. Calicut is in Kerala and definitely the west coast. So you can note that correction. The text also, in the textbook also, it is wrongly printed as east coast. So it is the west coast, which is located in Kerala. So in 1498, he reached Calicut. By this, he was successful in discovering a new sea route to India, which so far had not at all existed. Now, this route continued to be the route of trade between India and Europe for many years. Like this, the Portuguese were the first to re-establish trade between India and Europe. Why are we saying the word re-establish? Because the trade was already there. Only it was there via Constantinople. In this case, it became a direct route between India and Europe. So that is why the word is re-established. Now, this is where the advent of Europeans actually began. With the success of Portuguese, many Dutch, French, and English arrived at India for trade. Please note in this chapter, wherever the word English is used, it means Englishmen. At that point of time, it was still not a practice to say British. So the concept there was people from England. That is how it is, the English. So when English is there, please note it refers to the Englishmen or people from England or present day United Kingdom of Great Britain. So they further arrived. It was first the Portuguese, Dutch, followed by the French and the English. Now, this development not only changed the history of India, it also changed the history of European countries, because they were having a lot of wars and revolutions in their countries, as we have seen in some other topics, rise of nationalism, and there also there were a lot of political changes that were happening. So those changes in a certain way got reflected here also between the different countries. Now, this map shows the Turkey or Constantinople as the center point, and on the right hand side we have the Indian subcontinent, that's India, the entire and Southeast Asia, Burma, Thailand, Vietnam, and Indonesia. And to the left you have the European powers, that's France, Germany, UK, and Ireland. Though in those days, those names were actually not there, it had not yet formed in those days. But for illustration purposes of the fall of Constantinople or the conquest of Constantinople, this is shown in this map. Now, let's begin with the Portuguese. The Portuguese were the first to arrive at India for the trade and were also the last to leave India on the sea route. Now, after Vasco da Gama, who was the first explorer who found, Francisco de Almeida arrived in India as the Viceroy of the Portuguese. He implemented the blue water policy in order to establish the supremacy over the sea instead of supremacy over lands. Now, it was the land route which had caused trouble. So, definitely on sea, he wanted the Portuguese supremacy here. And Alfonso de Albuquerque, who came after Almeida, is considered as the real founder of the Portuguese Empire in India. Now, Alfonso de Albuquerque, he waged a battle. This is how the invasion, in the advent, start of trading, as well as the conquer of the country actually began. So this was one of the first ones which happened. He waged a battle against the Sultan of Bijapur in 1510 and won Goa. Goa became the administrative center of Portuguese administration in India. Please remember, during those times, the entire Indian subcontinent had close to 500 and odd kingdoms. They were small kingdoms. Now, with this battle, he defeated the Sultan and won over Goa. And after this, the Portuguese had absolute monopoly over trade with India for almost a century, and their power declined with the arrival of English and French in India. The next to come were the Dutch. The Dutch are from Holland, or the United Kingdom of Netherlands. The name nowadays used is the Netherlands. They established the United East India Company in 1602 with the aim of doing business with Eastern countries and entered countries like India, Java, Sumatra, Indonesia, and Spice-Rich Islands. Spice-Rich Islands is a group of islands which is near Indonesia. It's a bunch of islands closer to Indonesia, entirely which used to grow spices. And they established warehouses in Surat, Broch. Broch is again, these are all old names. So you can use them as these names itself. Broch is modern day Bharuch, which is all in Gujarat. Kambe, Cochin, Nagapatnam, Masulipattnam, and Chinsor and other places in India. With this, they broke the monopoly of Portuguese in India, the second European power to enter the country. And wherever they used to enter, they used to have agreements with the local ruler there. They would either buy off the entire land from him, or they would seek his permission and then establish these warehouses. Later, unable to face competition from the English and French, the Dutch limited themselves to spice-rich islands. Like like I told, the spice-rich islands are islands which are to the northeastern part of Indonesia, in the same area as Indonesia. So when there was too much of this competition between the English and the French, and their products could not do trade, they walked out of this country. Now, after this, it was the British who came. In 1600, on December 31st, Queen Elizabeth issued a royal charter authorizing East India Company to trade with Eastern countries for 15 years. And the company started the business formally in 1613. This was the first royal permission given. The Mughal Emperor Jahangir issued a royal permission to the English to establish their first warehouse of a factory at Surat. In 1617, Sir Thomas Roe arrived at the court of Jahangir as a royal ambassador from the court of James I. He sought permission from Jahangir to establish factories in other places of the Mughal Empire. This was the whole beginning. They were the third European power to enter the country, and it was purely on a requirement for trade at that point of time. The English established factories in Agra, Ahmedabad, and Bharuch. In 1639, English took Madras from the king of Chandragiri and established a strong fort named St. George Fort. They actually defeated the king of Chandragiri, and Madras was there under him at that time, and they established this fort of St. George Fort, which is there even today as a historical monument. Later, Charles II, the Prince of England, gave Bombay as an annual rent of 10 pounds a year to East India Company in 1668. See, those days, the situation was that they would even buy off these cities. In 1690, the English purchased 3 villages named Sutanauti, Kalikata, and Govindapura on the banks of Hooghly River and built Fort William, which today is the capital of West Bengal, which is Calcutta. The city of Calcutta grew around this fort. By 17th century, the English had established Bombay, Madras, and Calcutta as the centers of their residencies. By later part of 18th century, the English made Calcutta as their capital city. Wherever they went, they implemented their own civil and criminal procedure codes in the areas that were under their control. With this, we are almost at the end of this session. In the next session, we will see how the French arrives. Any doubts, please contact us on these numbers, or you can send a message on the Bhatt and Bhatt mobile app, chat section. Thank you.